Venus being the energy of what we value, what brings us joy and pleasure. It's a fun space. It's a fun place to be. We love Venus around here. I'm genuinely gonna have a hard time focusing on this because my AC is right here. It's the only AC unit in our entire apartment. And considering the heat wave that we're currently in, yes, I'm filming during 104-degree weather. I just can't bring myself to turn it off. But it's also all that I hear in my head. We're gonna make it work. It's gonna end up working. It has to. That's the only option. Hello and welcome to the Rebel Daughter Astrology Podcast, the astrology podcast that fights the patriarchy by helping you be yourself. I'm your host and fellow Rebel Daughter, Hannah Ray Stevens, and today we are talking about. I need to just right out the gate share that I have a Venus bias. I'm sorry. I'm a Taurus rising, Taurus moon, ruled by Venus, and not for nothing, getting connected with the archetype of Venus has been so instrumental in my own embodiment journey, in my own coming into myself journey, in accepting and also deconstructing the religion that I was raised in. Like, it has been so instrumental. So if I demonstrate a bias during this, I acknowledge that and I am not sorry. Sorry. Venus we know well as the planet of love and beauty. We often associate her with her counterpart Aphrodite in Greek mythology. But there's other mythologies that she's rooted in that really deepen her meaning to be just beyond love and beauty. But I also want us to be able to sink into the meanings of love and beauty with the appreciation that they deserve. Because very often I feel like when we give a feminine planet like Venus, who is about receiving, and remember, when I talk about feminine and masculine, I'm not talking about male and female. I'm talking about feminine being receiving and masculine being penetrating. And Venus is one of these energies that receives. It would like to receive pleasure and comfort and joy and balance as well, which is interesting because Venus is one of the benefics. The benefics are the planets Venus and Jupiter that both bring good things. Ancient astrologers loved to go on about how having Venus or Jupiter well placed in a nativity. They say it in all of these ways where it's like, this man will be raised up and lifted above, and it's those kinds of things. But in general, Venus being the energy of what we value, what brings us joy and pleasure. It's a fun space. It's a fun place to be. We love Venus around here. But when we have this planet that is associated with femininity in terms of receiving, in terms of opening up to appreciate, enjoy, and value. And then we start associating these things like love and beauty with it. We very quickly, especially in our current patriarchal society, get into this little bit of a trap where we start to minimize the power and the sacredness of those feminine qualities of love and beauty. Because let's break it down. All right, this is a Venus breakdown, so settle on in. What is love? Baby, don't hurt me. Sorry, I had to. I mean, even just that, how many songs are there trying to figure out what is love? It's this concept that's really nebulous and hard for us to quantify or qualify. Quantify. I will say, qualifying, feeling the qualities of love, is something that art has done forever, right? Music, movies, poetry, art, drawing, so many things, sculptures that try to capture this feeling that we experience of love. And we have a lot of synonyms that we can bring into love as well. We have liking, appreciating, celebrating. There's all of these things that, when it comes down to it, is very rooted in whatever it is that we value, right? And that is what I see as the core of Venus. You cannot have this deep appreciation for the beauty of things, for looking at colors and shapes and organic matter and art. You can't like, that doesn't mean anything to you unless you value those kinds of things. And then when I say those kinds of things, how many different kinds of art and music and shapes and colors are there, right? So then that's where we get into where your Venus is placed very often speaks to the things that you value the most. So you'll see a lot of content online being around just like your Venus sign. Use your Venus sign to be a little bit more like you. And I'm here for that. Like I definitely think that that works. But I think we have to look at what's deeper than that. It's not just like you like sharp things because you're a Scorpio Venus. Like it may end up translating that. Like I've seen a lot of Scorpio Venuses have a really intense, kind of like dark gothic sense of style. But it's not just because Scorpio is the dark and mysterious. No, it's because you value scorpionic themes like intensity, like getting down into the deep, like finding what's hidden in the dark. Like you value those things, right? And so then when we value something, we emulate it, we embody it. And that is where I think this actions speak louder than words thing comes into play as well. Because I very often see folks saying, well, I didn't, blah, 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 blah. Like I said this and I said that, and like you heard me say these things. Am I thinking about Love Island right now? Very possibly. Very possibly. When we say one thing and we mean something else, or if we say one thing and then our behaviors, our actions show something else, very often, even though sometimes it's a subconscious program that's running of things that we've learned or beliefs that we hold really close to us that we don't even realize are helping run our life, when we embody or we act in accordance with those values, whether we realize it or not, we are signaling that we are aligned with those kinds of values, thoughts, behaviors, ideals, etc. And that's where it gets hard in this world where we are systemically, intentionally oppressed and shoved into expectations and behaviors that we are told are acceptable or valuable or the status quo. When we're shoved into those directions and we are taught and programmed that this is the one way to behave, like all of that's happening in the background. So very often sometimes we have a cognitive understanding of what our beliefs and values are, what it is we want, and then there's this subconscious programming as well. Some of it is inherent to us and some of it is just coming from what we've already learned. So all of that to say, I find that tapping into your Venus sign and house, and also looking at the signs and houses, I'm sorry, not the signs. Well, we know what the signs. I'll get into that in a second. But tapping into the houses that Venus also rules in your chart can give you a little bit more insight into, okay, what is actually valuable to me? What is important to me? What is important for me to have balance between, especially the two houses that Venus rules? Like, how can I balance between these two areas of my life? The two signs that Venus rules are Taurus and Libra. Taurus is a fixed earth sign, really grounded, really rooted, very sensual in terms of being in tune with the five senses, experiences life in a very sensual way, like very about people often are like, Taurus just want to lay around and like have good snacks. And it's like, yeah, bitch, have you ever laid down and felt like your body being supported by the earth? Have you ever like rubbed a blueberry in between your fingers and felt how soft that skin was, and then peeled it back to see the intricate lines of flesh beneath it, and then feel it burst in your mouth? Like, that's Taurus. Taurus gets into the magic of sensuality, of experiencing life through your five senses. So that's one part of Venus, right? It shows the romanticization and the beauty and the value of being present in our physical world. So Taurian, okay? Libra, on the other hand, is where we get into the other side of Venus, which is Libra is this cardinal air sign. It initiates connection. It initiates conversation. It wants to find the balance between self and other. And that's something that I think people don't give Libra enough credit for. They're very like, well, Libra can't pick a side, and Libra is wishy-washy. And it's like, Libra wants to connect. And Libra understands that sometimes creating tension or friction disrupts connection. And so I think Libra can actually learn, like one of the beautiful things Libra can begin learning and embodying in this life, no matter what placement you have there, is how to marry those two things. Libra is about union, and that's something that Venus signifies as well, is the union of two opposing or separate or different ideals, and being able to blend and bring them together and create harmony between them. So sometimes, yes, Libra can lean into tendencies of maybe people pleasing, maybe not saying exactly what they're thinking or feeling, but they understand. It's coming from this place where they understand the weight of that and how that can impact a connection. So I think with Libra, the ticket is, just make sure that your communication is intentional. We don't have to hide things. And we have to realize that sometimes things have to be broken to come back together. So I think it's really beautiful how those two signs embody the kind of dichotomy of Venus, how there is this sensual, grounded, earthy, receiving here in the physical flesh side of Venus that really just wants to bask in the beauty of being alive. And then there's this part of Venus that's like, okay, but give me the details. I want to connect. I'm curious. I want to learn more about you. I want to see what we can build together. Like, look at the beauty and everything that we have available to us. What can we make with this? And that's the Libra side of it. So when we look at Venus in our charts, that is like the core of our values, of what matters to us, of what we are willing to stand up and fight for, which we'll get to when we get to Mars. Okay. But also, Venus is a warrior in her own right. Like, in a lot of mythologies, aside from Aphrodite, but also even Aphrodite herself would go out and get what she wants. Like, Venus was not afraid to stand up and take a stand when it was something that she truly believed in. And I love tracing the mythology back, seeing that Venus, rooted in Aphrodite, comes from the Sumerian goddesses of Ishtar, Inanna. But Inanna was the goddess. She was the Sumerian goddess. Like, she was the one that was, yes, love, but not the type of like sexual fertility goddess that Venus ended up escalating and morphing into, shapen by the patriarchy. But she was a war goddess. She was one that was going to take a stand and make sure that her people were protected, because that's what she valued. I'm going to do a whole mythology series where we talk about the planets and the mythologies that they're associated with. So tune back in for that one, because I'm going to have details on all of these mythologies. But when we look at the history of all of these love and fertility and beauty goddesses, there's a deeper root. And that's part of what I think we've been intentionally taught to forget, that, like I said earlier, love and beauty comes from a place of deep-rooted values. And that is what Venus speaks to. And that's where you get to start doing some pretty fun astrology too. This is where, wherever your Venus is, look at the sign that she's in and think about the planet that rules that sign. What types of themes does that planet represent? How do you value those themes? How do you experience those themes in your day-to-day life? Where can maybe we start prioritizing and leaning into those themes even more? There's a few creators who do excellent work. And by creators, I mean astrologers who are doing excellent work on helping you dive into your Venus placement, understand it more, translate it into style and expression. Because at the end of the day, like I said, Venus represents what we value. And what we value, we often want to embody. So for me recently, I've been like, yo, I really do value comfort and lightness and cohesiveness. Venus does love cohesion. Let me tell you, she loves balance. She loves harmony. She likes to make things work together. So I've definitely, as a Taurus rising, with my Venus in Cancer, those two signs, with having my moon in Taurus and then the moon being the one ruling the Venus in Cancer in that mutual reception, it's been very self-validating for me to be like, oh yeah, no, I literally need things to be comfortable in order to wear them. I physically need comfort. And as a neurodivergent girly, it's been very affirming. And it's funny to think back too, as how, you know, growing up and being in high school and having a homeschool background where I wasn't around people, I didn't watch TV, I didn't know what trends were. I had to kind of just figure out what felt good and what I liked wearing. And I wasn't like a big risk taker girly, but I still would take some fashion risks that I didn't see anybody else taking around me. And at the end of the day, it was always because I was choosing something that either was comfortable or was exciting and made me feel powerful. And I think that's another signification that Venus doesn't get enough credit for or attention for, is that Venus is about power. The power that comes from being able to be fully embodied, to be rooted in values, and to take a stand and say, no, actually, I'm not going to bend on this. And also the power of being able to receive. And I talked about this in the moon video a little bit, how a lot of us, you know, Venus being in Taurus or Venus being in Libra or wherever Venus is, sometimes we're quick to be like, Venus is going to be good for you in this time, blah, 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 blah. But at the end of the day, wherever Venus either is in your chart or is transiting in the moment in the sky is where we are looking at our relationship with receiving, with pleasure, with comfort. And those are sometimes things that we have really complicated relationships with. So it's not always going to be this happy, la la, beautiful, yay kind of experience. Sometimes it's going to be really laden with, ooh, some deep wounds, some deep hurts, some deep pains, some deep traumas or triggers that come up when we lean into Venusian things like being in our bodies. I think the best way to work with Venus transits is looking at the house specifically that she's going through in your chart and making some time and space to really look at that area of your life and be like, how can I make this feel better? How can I make this flow more easily? How can I turn this part of my life into a work of art? How can I share this in a way that makes me feel seen and supported? If you're watching this when this video drops, Venus will be in Leo and Jupiter just entered Leo as well. So we have this kind of double dose of looking at the Leo part of our chart and being like, how can I make this feel better for me? And with both benefics in any sign, there's always this feeling of like, whoa, there's a lot happening there. I think the signs that the planets both feel most comfortable and least comfortable in speak so deeply to what that planet is best positioned to do or what their role or their job is. And we already talked about how Venus rules Taurus and Libra. Let's talk about the sign that she's exalted in. So that means she is well resourced, has everything she needs available to her in order to do her thing, and that is Pisces. Okay, Pisces, hello. She is so soft and dreamy and sweet and full of beauty. And I love Pisces being the place where Venus exalts, the sign ruled by Jupiter, this water sign, this mutable water sign, because Venus understands that, like, this this ocean-esque landscape that Jupiter has set up here in Pisces, where it is so deep and so wide, and there's so much to explore and also so much to feel. Like, she has an endless supply of both emotional resources and physical resources to turn her experience, marry the emotion with the physical, and turn it into some sort of expression. Venus and Pisces is so expressive, so beautiful. And when I say beautiful, I mean we're all gonna find different things beautiful, but Pisces is that energy of, like, I'm looking up at the sky and seeing the clouds, or looking at the waves and seeing the way that the sun catches on them and sparkles and glitters, seeing like a jellyfish, how it is so nebulous and loose and it just floats and flows, and it has those beautiful ribbons in its tentacles that come behind it. And or looking at like a water lily that's floating on the surface, all of these kind of watery images where it's just, I'm thinking about how light and water, when they come together, it just sparkles like this natural glitter. And that is so Venus and Pisces. Like, it is nature's putting on her biggest, most beautiful show, and Venus is here to celebrate it and embody it and show it and make art out of it. She's here with her watercolors. She's here with her cutest little outfit. She's here with a picnic blanket. She's here with a cooler of her favorite little mocktail. And she is there on the beach, ready to just like both weep at the beauty that is there before her and create something out of it, like really turn it into something else. Whereas the signs that she is least comfortable in are the ones that are opposite from Taurus and Libra. So those two signs are going to be Scorpio and Aries, the Mars ruled signs. And so now we have this kind of natural push and pull between Venus and Mars. Venus being the planet of receiving, of pleasure, of balance, of harmony, and Mars, the planet of action and separation and heat and intensity. And can you just hear the dichotomy between the two? Like Venus is like, but what if we had a snack and a nap? And Mars is like, but what if we drank a raw egg and then went and worked out? And Venus is like, can I wear something cute? And it's not to say that Venus doesn't do her thing in Scorpio and Aries. That's never how it is. But when she's in these signs of what we call her detriment, she doesn't have those resources like she does in Pisces. She's not going to the beautiful beach to see everything beautiful and shiny and find these little creatures on the shore and like meet new friends on the beach and throw beach balls. Like that's not the vibe. In Scorpio, it's like, oh, I'm now in, the word that came to mind was a pleasure cave or a pleasure dungeon. Like she turns it into a pleasure dungeon is what she's gonna do. But it's like walking into this dark cave where there's these sharp stalactites and stalagmites coming up out of the floor. Oh, hi, Ralph. Ralph just scared the crap out of me, my little black one-eyed cat, which feels very like she's walking around this little haunted house like, oh, there's all these things. And so here she doesn't have like the soft, beautiful, pleasurable things that she usually would, but here she can develop an appreciation and see the magic in all of these cave forms that are happening and find all of the crystals that are behind the walls that she has to dig a little bit for. She can find the beauty in the pain, in the handcuffs or the whips, or you know what I mean? Meanwhile, over in Aries, Aries is like she walks in out of this beautiful, like, oceanside resort that is Pisces and steps into the fiery, harsh desert of Aries. And she's like, oh, the sand is really, really rough here and it's burning my feet. And the sun, there's no shade. Help. Hello, help. I'm making a video, Ralphie. Well, so here, once again, she doesn't have, like, she doesn't even have the water of Pisces so that she can make a sand castle out of this, right? But what she can do is she can write messages in the sand. She can write big, bold messages. She can wrap herself in protective garments so that she is comfortable in the heat, in the desert. She can find vehicles and travel across quickly so that she doesn't have to stay in one place. She can definitely take the lead and take action in getting to where it is she needs to go so that she feels better. So if you happen to have your Venus in one of the signs of her detriment, number one, I don't want you to panic or worry or anything. I love an Aries and a Scorpio Venus because they're going to say and do the things that most other Venus placements won't, because they are not necessarily interested in keeping this harmony going. What they are interested in is authenticity. They are interested in getting to the root of the truth. They are interested in being honest and upfront and embodying things. They are interested in embodying the truth of who they are at no matter the cost. Like, screw what other people think. I don't care. I'm here to be me, and we need that. On the other hand, the sign that's opposite from Pisces is Virgo, and this is the sign where we consider Venus to be fallen. So this is where, she definitely doesn't have the resources that she typically needs to feel comfy. The thing about Venus in Virgo is she just has to work extra hard here. She has tools that she can use that are at her disposal, but the tools she has is like scalpels and trowels and things where she can dig and nitpick and pull apart, very analytical, very not aligned with the whole like let it flow and let it go kind of vibe. It's like, no, let's make something actually happen the way I want to exactly. And this is where Venus can get a little bit too honed in on the final outcome rather than the process of creation. And at her core, that is really what we're needing to sink into with Venus, is the experience of creation, not that final outcome. And that's where some of, we can bring in some of Venus's balance. Sometimes we get lost in either the outcome or we get lost in the journey. We forget what we're doing in the first place. And in Virgo, we see a lot of really stunning people have Venus in Virgo. We see a lot of people who put a lot of time and effort and intention into their physical appearance or into their creations, their works, their projects, because they have a very clear vision of the goal, of the project, of the outcome. Kim Kardashian is an example of Venus in Virgo. And we think about how much work she has put in to her physical embodiment of herself, to her career, to her relationships and her family. Even if we're thinking about Venus being the ruler of relationships as well, we can start to see how it's like, it's very intentional, but how authentic is it? And this is not to say that Venus in Virgo is not authentic. What I'm saying is Venus in Virgo feels like they have to work harder to obtain that level of authenticity that for some other Venus signs may feel like it comes a little bit more naturally. So if you have Venus in Virgo, just give yourself a little bit of grace. And if you want to learn more about it and how to work with it, book a reading with me. I love doing Venus readings. The last thing I'll touch on is, yes, Venus indeed is the ruler of relationships. But when I say relationships, I once again want us to root back into this idea of values. When we enter into relationship with someone, when we agree to be friends, partners, business partners, romantic partners, we are essentially signing a contract of what we agree to provide, what we are asking to receive, what that push and pull is going to look like. We're agreeing that we are going to show up and invest time and energy and potentially other resources into this relationship. Here we come again with Venus's significations of balance. She wants it to be a fair push and pull. So if we are unclear on our values or what it is that we want in a partner, if we are unclear about our values or what we want in a partner or what we are willing to give or what we are wanting to receive, our relationships are not going to feel fulfilling. So I find often that rooting into that Venus placement and getting so clear on your values, like using Venus as values identification, that is embodied astrology. That is the astrology where we're using it as a tool to help us get closer to who we already are, to what we already believe in, what we already invest our time and energy into, but so we can do it with a more intentional lens. And so that's why I think when we look at the chart and we see Venus and where she's at, that can tell us about what we look for in a partner because it tells us about what we value. I really truly hope that we're all looking for partners that fulfill things that we value. And if we're choosing people who are not aligned with our values, that we're setting appropriate boundaries so that we don't feel taken advantage of, or we don't feel like we're putting too much in, or we're not feeling respected, whatever it is. That's why looking at your Venus can help you get to know more about your relationships and your partners, because it tells you more about what you value. If you actually want to learn more about what your partners in this life will look like, that's more so the seventh house. Venus is more so, what do I as an individual value, both for myself and in others? At the end of the day, as an astrologer, Venus is really, truly one of my favorite things to root into and work with others, because I feel like that's so important and integral to the core of who you are, what you value, what brings you joy, what brings you pleasure, what brings you the things that we're really meant to experience and celebrate in life. Like Venus is those parts of ourselves that just wants to have fun. And there's nothing wrong with that. My friends, if you leave with anything today, please let it be, you're allowed to want what you want. You're allowed to pursue joy. You're allowed to pursue pleasure. Dare I say, good of all and harm to none and all that. Like, let's not be doing things, let's not be finding pleasure in harming other people. Okay? And if that's you, therapy is a good option. Genuinely, the systems that we live in have tried to teach us that our pleasure and our joy and our bodies even are frivolous or are inconsequential. I mean, think about how many things that are dubbed Venusian or feminine, things like beauty and makeup and fashion and cooking. Like, how many things are branded feminine in terms of women in the system, not by me, in the system, and then are considered frivolous or silly or don't waste your money on that when it's literally investing into your body, your well being, your wellness, your joy. Investing in your joy is deemed frivolous. Hello? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. That's where the balance needs to come in. That's where Venus's true balance needs to come in and remind us that we can work. We are productive beings. We are beings who are going to create and make things happen regardless, because that's what we do. We tell stories and we make things. We feed ourselves, we tell stories, we make things, we sleep, we take care of our body, and we make things. Like, and that is so Venusian. Why can't we enjoy those things? Why can't those things be a source of abundance and fun? Like, that is the whole point, guys. It makes me want to scream. It makes me want to scream when the systems make us feel like we can't have what we want or what we like or what we enjoy, or that those things are bad or wrong or sinful or frivolous. And I feel like Venusian things very often get the brunt of that. Venusian and lunar, Venus and the moon, the two feminine planets, are the ones who their topics and things get villainized, demonized, or what's the word? It's the word for when you make someone feel like a child, infantilized. And I'm not here for that. I'm not down with that. And that is truly the core of all of my work. All of my readings are really rooted in connecting you back with the things that not only make you feel like you, but the things that you value, the things that you want, the things that you desire, and figuring out, number one, what is that rooted in? What is actually at the core of what it is that you want? And number two, who told you can't have that? And why are we letting them be the voice that pushes us forward? And how can we start creating our own path forward? I'm just saying. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Venus is, I could truly yap forever, and I'm sure I forgot some things along the way. So I'll definitely be posting more on socials about Venus and how I work with her. If you have any questions or comments about your experience with Venus, your placement, and the values that you have either identified for yourself or that you're noticing have always kind of been present there, I would love to hear about it. So please drop me a comment, like, subscribe, all the things to stay in touch. But at the end of the day, all you need to do is stay you, rebels. Bye.